1, 2, 1, 2. Okay. Well, let's see if this is all going to work. There we go. That's what we wanted. We'll turn off the South African Super League and just do our usual bit. Let people come in. Let's let people get into the stream. The tweet's gone out. Hopefully as well, like I say, we're going to get some people coming in a moment. Just give people that opportunity just to get in the door, as it were. So the message has gone out as well, quickly as well. So, doing the bit before we start. So just checking in, saying hello. Hope everyone's all right. The hope here is that we're going to have a few, we've got a few bits and pieces. Hopefully people are aware that the things have gone out. So we're just going to quickly as well just put the tweet, put the stuff into... live. There we go. Just make sure that we've got the... make sure that that's all going into the places we need it to go. So we just make sure we've got people coming in before we get rocking and rolling. Before we get started with bits and pieces, let's press those buttons there. We're going to do that. Right, righty ho. Feels like we can get going in a moment. Just refresh everything there. Hopefully things are coming through. Either way, we'll just get rocking and rolling, shall we? Guys, gals, and the gender fluid and all beyond the binary, is Wednesday night. It is 8 PM, and welcome back once again to the BOTW What's Current stream. My name is Anthony Russell, with you once again to guide you through the wonderful, weird, and bizarre world that is the National Ice Hockey League here in Great Britain. We focus on the National Division. That is our bread and butter. That is our home port. But of course, we have a crack at covering absolutely everything from the National Division as well as Division 1 and Division 2 in the north and in the south. Hope you're doing well. Wednesday night again. Here we are again, and everything seems to be ticking along. Hopefully everything's actually working. This is our second week of trying this with like software and streaming bits and pieces, because we can kind of like flick between things, and it's all very flash and very swish and everything like that. However, hopefully things are going to work. And it's going to be okay. It seemed to work all right last week, and people seem to like it. Trying to watch 3 things at once. I can't imagine why this would be a problem. Why this would even be a choice, Jamie? Why else? Why would you not want to watch anything apart from this? Apart from, of course, as an MK fan with one eye on what's going on over in Romford. 1-0, of course. If we're tuning in, we are live right now. So it's Wednesday the 15th of Feb. And currently the Leeds Knights are 1-0 up against the Raiders in Romford at the moment. Kieran Brown, I know, has got the goal there. But before we get cracking on with having a look at everything that's happening in the National Ice Hockey League structure, a couple of bits of housekeeping. Firstly, hi, welcome to YouTube. If you're not already, make sure you pop down below, make sure you hit subscribe, make sure you tick the bell for notifications, because YouTube works on those bits and pieces. Also, definitely a thing to do, if you're watching live, or even if you're watching after the fact, please do share the stream out on your social media of choice, whether it's Facebook, whether it's Twitter, whether it's Mastodon, whether it's Bebo. If you're on True Social, you probably need to have a word with yourself. Carrier pigeon, whatever you want to do, make sure you share it out, because this, of course, isn't a conversation. It's meant to be a conversation. It's not meant to be just me talking away. You've got the lovely chat feature, which in my head is over here. If I keep remembering which way round to do my hands, because this is still quite new to me. And questions, comments, anything you want to chuck in about any of the stuff as we go along, then please do that. But of course, if you are using the chat function, do remember the golden rule here at BOTW. That is DBAD. Don't be a dick. Be respectful of other people's thoughts, feelings, and opinions as you go along. The other bit of housekeeping we need to do here, of course, is the website, bannersonthewall.wordpress.com. That's where I do my writing. I've been writing there for nearly 12 years about British ice hockey, mostly about the Basingstoke Bison across that period of time. Player signings, player departures, running with the herd, which is our series where we look at the most recent Bison home game. The latest one of those, of course, from Saturday's game against the Swindon Wildcats, went up earlier on this evening. Not the greatest game in the history of hockey. Close, tight, decent game of hockey, and unfortunately the Bison just came up on the wrong end of it. That's just how it works. Unfortunately, such is life. Can't win them all. But yeah, there's also other bits and pieces on there, such as our Hockey Stories series. We go long form content, in-depth pieces about stories in the weird, wonderful, and wacky world of hockey. We go back into the 19th century up to the present day. We go through wars. We go behind the Iron Curtain. We go from the NIHL all the way to the NHL in some of the stories that we tell. It's definitely a bit of something for everybody. New pieces in the works as well. I was doing an interview on Sunday night actually. For a piece that I'm doing for Hockey Stories at the moment. They're a really interesting character as well. Not someone you know necessarily. You might be aware of them, but maybe not. So hopefully, like I say, when that piece, I've got to start putting bits together now. I've done the interviews for it, so stuff's going to start coming together. But there's the back catalogue of the BOTW podcast there too. Our tabletop game Dice Hockey, that's free to download. Bunch of stuff there for you to read and enjoy over at bannersonthewall.wordpress.com. So, a lot of stuff has happened, obviously, in the NIHL. We start, as we usually do, over in the National. Hull apparently have a big announcement coming up this weekend. I'm really interested to see what it is. I've made my predictions as to what the announcement will be. I'm convinced either Emil Svek has re-signed for next year, or they're about to announce Chip Spice as their title sponsor. That's kind of where I'm going on. That's where I'm going on that front in terms of Hull's big announcement. Just double checking the night's score as we go along, and it's 2-0. 2-0 to Leeds in Romford. Jake Witkowski has put in Witkowski has had a shot blocked, and then Leeds have scored the rebounds. It's not Witkowski himself who appears to have scored. I'm just waiting for Andrew Andrew Day, of course, the man who watches more hockey than anybody known to man, doing the updates there. Just trying to see who has scored. It's Mac Howlett on the rebound there to pop that one in. 2-0 lead. So bad news for MK and Peterborough fans. Good evening to everyone I can see in the chat there. Jamie's obviously there. Kev is there. I can see from Peterborough. Niall there from Hull. So good evening to all of good evening to you folk who've joined us this evening. Either way, let's probably just start having a quick look as to what's going on over from the last weekend of the National Division. We go back to Friday evening over in Leeds. The start of this crazy run of games that Leeds have got in a really, really short space of time, but did not initially start well for the Knights. A 3-2 home loss against the Sheffield Steel Dogs. Of course, they'd be facing then again a couple of days later Kieran Brown and Adam Barnes. Great to see Adam Barnes not just back in the lineup, but back on the score sheet, doing what he does well for the Leeds Knights. Obviously, a really turbulent couple of months for Barnes and his family, so it's great to see him back out there doing what he does best. But 2 goals from John Kirk, including the game winner, and a goal from Jason Hewitt. Means that the Steel Dogs skate out of Leeds with the points there. Now, obviously, this is going to be a bit of a theme over the course of the stream here, just because Leeds have played so many games that it's impossible to kind of not talk about the bits and pieces that they've done. But just this run of games is going to prove really, really important for them, and you just wonder how many of these little dropped points are going to be an issue for them as the time goes on. Either way, I've just mentioned the fact that there's a write-up there on the website on bannersonthewall.wordpress.com about this game. Bison losing 3-2 at home to Swindon. The Bison's winning run comes to an end. Swindon's goes on. 2 goals from Colby Tower and a goal from Chris Jones are what get the Cats over the line. The Bison 2-1 up in this game. Edgar Landsberg knew virtually sod all about his goal because it sort of sat there on the doorstep and he just happened to be there and he tapped it in. But Marcel Balach's goal was, apart from being incredibly greasy, just a brilliantly well taken goal where he sort of backhands it almost one-handed through the 5-hole of Rennie Marr whilst at a stretch a really well taken goal. And like I say, this game is not going to win any prizes. It wasn't the greatest game in the world. It wasn't the worst game in the world. What this was actually two teams that really just cancelled each other out for large periods of the game. Special teams the key here. That goal from Tower coming right at the end on the power play. Not necessarily a call. I actually think, given the context of some of the stuff that wasn't called in this game, I felt I was confused as to why it was called. But the Bison have got to defend it. Puck goes high to Aaron Nell for the shot. Zach Milton gets a stick in the lane and it kills the momentum of the puck. But unfortunately, there's Tower in that bumper position to just slot the puck past Metem, who's down in his butterfly. Metem, of course, not a big netminder. 3-2 Swindon. And then the Bison, actually, to their credit, they had time to get a goal back, but their 6-on-5 play when they pulled Metem from the net was just not good enough. The best chances all fell to Swindon, really. And they were denied an empty net goal. If you look at the shots on goal for this one, there is one shot on the empty net that misses because it is saved by Gael Lebwele jumping in the air to kick it out of the air with his shin, which is definitely one way to stop things from happening there. Frustration though for the Bison, because but like I've said in the piece, and do go read it. It's there on the front page of the website now. But just sometimes you play games like that and you lose, and it's no big drama, no big issue or anything like that. Just sometimes things just don't go your way. What you've got to be able to do is you've got to be able to rebound and bounce back from those kind of games. Hull, who obviously we've briefly just mentioned, they kind of end up causing a little bit of a scare in this one. The Lightning win in the shootout by 4 goals to 3. Liam Stewart with the all important goal in this one, not as the game sheet says here on Sportle. It wasn't Vincent Graziano. That would be very impressive for the backup netminder to score in the shootout from the bench. But MK going 3-1 up in this one. 1-1 early in the second. Ed Nags and Emil Svek cancelling each other out. Max Stewart and Sam Talbot make it 3-1 heading into the third. But Hull just starting to pick up a tiny bit of momentum, certainly in the way that they approach games and how they're starting to sting some of these teams. If nothing else, this line here, Archer, Ulrich and Salem, is a fantastically potent combination that's going to do some damage. And then Emil Svek managing to get a late one there inside the last 2 minutes to take it to the shootout. It goes to sudden death penalty shots in the end. Stewart scores, Svek misses, a save by Daniel Crone, what I believe was his first man of the match performance for the Lightning on Saturday. So congratulations to him. But the Lightning end up skating out of that one with the extra point. What's that in the chat? Very flat performance by the Lightning Saturday night. The thing is that I think stylistically Hull would play in a way that would cause problems for MK, because they're just this sort of weird mix. Hull, it's really hard to kind of get a handle on exactly what they are stylistically. But one thing they're really good at doing is just kind of trying to clog stuff up. Now, that strategy can work both ways, and it can be really, really awkward because you can get blown apart where you are not having a really, really hard defensive structure. But the other thing it can do is, because it's just a little bit chaotic, it's hard to read, and you don't necessarily know how to pass around it or how to move around it. And also, if you come in a bit flat, thinking maybe you're going to win, maybe MK didn't quite give Hull enough respect coming into this one, and the Seahawks stole a point out of it, and more power to them for it in the long run for that. So just moving on through Saturday, the game with all the goals, Saturday night in Bristol, a 6-5 overtime win for the Pitbulls against the Bees. And of course, the big news from Bristol was just before the game, coming at just around sort of the 5 o'clock mark, the announcement that Max Bebrea, out of retirement and back on the ice to help out the Bristol Pitbulls with the absence of Owen Sobchuk. Really, really interesting signing, this one, because of course, for those people who remember what Max Bebrea was like as a player, he's not very much like Owen Sobchuk. So his signing was a little bit of a surprise, only in the sense that it had been rumoured and been confirmed a couple of weeks ago, and we were just waiting for Bristol to announce it. But Bebrea, not necessarily the kind of guy you would expect to see back on the ice. Ulrich was amazing versus Bison on Sunday. Fingers crossed we signed him up for next season, would be nice. I think for Ulrich, he needs to be pushing on for a full-time Elite League slot, to be honest. No, I think he should be Manchester full-time, if I'm honest. But we'll see what happens. We're strange the ways of the Elite League. Either way, back down to Bristol. The Bees 2-0 up at the end of the first period. Done goodbye and Will Stead. Then as we can see from the game sheet here, Bristol come roaring back. Bailey Harewood, Callie Robertson, Nick Corrich and Mason Lipsey making it 4-2 before Juha Lindgren manages to make it 4-3 just before the end of the second. Bees tie up in the third through Will Stead. Callie Robertson getting his second of the night, making it 5-4, and then Josh Smith with about 7 minutes to play, so plenty of time for both sides to have potentially won it in regulation here, but ends up going to OT. But on his debut, it's Max Berbrea with the overtime game-winning goal, and he does the damage. And just skipping back through here, it's a 1+2 night for Berbrea as he returns to the ice for, like I say, for the first time in 2 years. So the impact that Jamie Elsom will have wanted him to have evident there straight away. And the thing with Berbrea, of course, was, yes, very like I say, not very Owen Sobchak-like in how he plays the game. So this is obviously a very, very different type of creativity. There's that little bit of creativity that actually they probably needed. Someone who, if they're not going to play round people, is going to try and play through people. And that in itself is probably quite a useful thing. I'm probably going to upset a couple of people with the next game that we're going to talk about, but talk about it we need to. From Saturday, Peterborough lose at home 5-3 to the Peterborough fans. Peterborough lose at home to the Telford Tigers, who, like I put in the tweets in the lead up to this, big weekend for Telford. We'll talk about their Sunday win, but 4 points for the Tigers this weekend. Are we starting to see some of those signings that Tommy Watkins made? Are they starting to have an effect? We've obviously seen as well. They've added a couple of youngsters as well. Young Wilson from North Ayr, Toby Fisher from the Nottingham Lions as well, joining on a two-way. But Rory Herman, Tom Carlin, and Gareth O'Flaherty, things are starting. Are the things starting to look up? Is this a blip of a weekend upwards, or is this the start of an upward trend for Tom Watkins? He's made some really, really shrewd signings in an attempt to turn things around with the injuries that they've had. Obviously losing Jason Silverthorne and Nick Oliver for the year. Jonathan Weaver's been in and out of the lineup with injury. Are we starting to see some of those bits of tinkering that Tom Watkins has done starting to take effect? Peterborough, though, 2-1 up in this game at the end of the first. Rory Herman's goal cancelled out by Joe Gretton, not the most usual of scorers, and Anish Padalek. And then, but the Tigers come back. Herman getting his second of the night. Finley Howes makes it 3-2. Padalek makes it 3-3 in the third before Herman Herman scores twice, gets his hat-trick goal to make it 4-3, and then scores into the empty net to give the Tigers the win at home. Phantoms were a bit poor, says Kev. It seems to have been a bit of an interesting Saturday night, doesn't it? Leeds obviously lose on the Friday. Milton Keynes then kind of stumble their way into 2 points at home against Hull. Peterborough just end up losing outright in regulation as well to the Tigers, which is definitely not what you want, especially for Peterborough, of course, because it feels like certainly that Peterborough want to keep hanging around, and the one thing they can't do is they can't lose too many games in this kind of fashion where they're at home and they need results, particularly because the one thing they'll get is you'll get Leeds and MK starting to pull away. If Peterborough want to still be in this title picture, they've got to find ways to win when they don't play well. Now, the majority of this season, all three of those teams have done that. However, there's been a few slip-ups from Peterborough recently. They make the cup final but they've lost to Swindon recently. Now they lose to Telford. They've got to start not losing some of those games against teams below them. The last game then from Saturday, he says I've butchered the bit there on the page, is Sheffield. Well, they win. They keep turning off. It seems to be an issue for a lot of teams at this level, unfortunately. But Sheffield have a big win away in Leeds. They come home and they lose at home to the Raiders. They do get a point out of it though. Raiders winning in the shootout in this one, but a pretty even game all in all, and one of those games from having spoken to people they kind of deserved to end up. Everyone deserved the point out of it, and that's what they get. Mateo Gomicic with the crucial shot there. At least he's credited with it, according to Sport. Or at least it's not the backup netminder in this one. Sean Barry, Blaz Novak, and Gomicic in regulation as well with the goals there for the Raiders. Vlad Volkanovs with 2, Lee Bonner with a goal as well for the Steel Dogs in that one. So 3 points in 2 days, not terrible for the Steel Dogs, but they really probably would have wanted to get full points out of this particular encounter again, especially. But then again, the sides that are in the middle of the pack, Sheffield, Swindon, and Romford, that 4-5-6 kind of trio. The reason why they're not in that top three is because they keep dropping little games. So they haven't gone on bad losing runs like Telford have, like Basingstoke have, like Bristol have, which is why they're fighting for those three sides are fighting for those last two spots. But just that bit of consistency is the thing that has kind of failed them a little bit. They're clearly good in the context of the division this year, between the three greats at the top, the three goods in the middle, and the three OKs kind of below them, and then left with Bees and Hull at the bottom. But yeah, the reason why is because they sort of drop random games like this, but they really should be winning, especially at home and ice Sheffield. Certainly that was Saturday, if nothing else. If we move into Sunday, decent then result for the Phantoms. They do rebound. Now, obviously, don't necessarily know how good a game they've had, but they certainly started well in Slough against the Bees. Austin Mitchell-King and Will Weldon with the 2 goals to make it 2-0 at the end of the first. Jack Goodchild getting another goal for the Bees to make it 2-1 before Corey McHugh makes it 3-1 before the end of the second. The Bees do score late in the third. Juha Lindgren with a power play goal makes it 3-2. But the Bees run out of time, they run out of road, and the Phantoms pick up a very, very important 2 points. It's very important, of course, in the context of everything that we've had recently. Given Leeds' little wobbles of late, it should be said. We just scoot back there. And then, given the game that's happening at the moment, we'll touch on it now, just because it's obviously happening again. But yeah, Leeds had fun in Romford when they were there the other night. 9-0 walloping that the Knights dish out. Close at the end of the first period, Matt Hayward with the lone goal there to make it 1-0, but it is 5-0 by the end of the second period. Hayward scoring a natural hat-trick before the half an hour mark of this game. Then Kieran Brown with 2 goals makes it 5-0, and then in the fourth, a few other people get a go. Brown does get his hat-trick by the end of the game, but goals as well for Cole Shudra, Jacob Witkowski, and Mac Howlett to just put this game. I mean, it was put to bed by the end of the second period at this stage. The Raiders having an almighty brain fart at home to concede 9 goals without any response at all. Just quickly scooting back down here because I just want to check whether we've got the shots on net. We do. Do we have the full shots on net? We don't. They've only got 2 periods worth of shots on net. Thank you, Sportle. Just painful to deal with still at the moment, unfortunately, Sportle. It looks nice, and they just can't get all of the important bits right for it, unfortunately. Then we head up to Hull. The Bison, unfortunately, again, they chuck away a lead. Bison 3-1 up in this game and lose in overtime to the Seahawks. The Seahawks have generally struggled at home against Basingstoke, and Bison 2-0 up in the first period through George Norcliffe and Zach Milton. The second period, Emil Svek scores very, very early, and that second period was all Seahawks. A massive thanks actually to the Seahawks as well for sorting me out with the stream for this one. Hallam Wilson getting another goal in Hull. Strangely again, he scores a lot of goals in Hull. Between him and Gael Lebuela, they're almost going to get the freedom of the city. But Nathan's goals within the space of about 40 seconds. Nathan Salem and Emil Svek tie things up late. The Bison can't get it over the line again. They end up dropping it. But they do get a point out of this one before a superb goal from Finley Ulrich wins it in overtime for the Seahawks. A 3-point weekend for Matty Davis's side. Massively important for them as they look to avoid the wooden spoon in their battle against the Bees. Moving on then, still through Sunday, just a couple of games left from Sunday itself. And like we said, a 4-point weekend for the Telford Tigers. I mean, stick in the chat, what do we think? Is this Telford starting to turn things around? Is this the start of the big upward swing? But a huge performance from the Tigers, a scoreless first period between them and the Steel Dogs, and then a 5-goal second period by the hosts. 5-2 at the end of the second period, having had nobody score in the first at all. Teams trading goals at Alex Graham, Lucas Price, Jack Brammer, Finley Howells. It's 2-2 within 7 minutes of the restart there in the second. But then Howells with the second, Rory Herman and Vlad Luca making it 5-2 before the break. Matt Bissonette getting one back for the Steel Dogs in the third. But Herman with another hat-trick. 7 goals on the weekend from Rory Herman. Huge performance from him. In terms of making an impact now. He really seems to have settled in well at Telford. And that's the sort of impact that they lost from Jason Silverthorne. If Herman, who is, I mean, the thing with Telford is that, and it's not an unfair thing to say, that the core at Telford is ageing, it's hurt, and it's lacking a bit of energy and a bit of oomph after some bad results. So what's Tom Watkins done in the form of Rory Herman? Herman is young, he's full of energy, and he's not hurt, which is pretty huge in the context of bits and pieces at the moment for them. The last game then from Sunday, and well, they stuttered a little bit on Saturday, and they did again kind of stutter a little bit here, Milton Keynes, but they win 5-3 in Swindon, but they do let the Wildcats back into this. Sean Norris, Max Stewart and David Sarkanis may have it 3-0 inside just over 8 minutes here. They do let the Cats back into it. Colby Tower with another goal this weekend. Sean Norris makes it 4-1, but 2 goals from Aaron Nell make it 4-3 with 20 minutes to play. The third period, an absolute battle, but that empty net goal from Sam Talbot kills off the game. It's a 4-point weekend for the Lightning, which is huge for them in the context, especially of what's going on. Albeit tonight's result still not really going their way at the moment. Just double check quickly. See, it's 3-0. Is it still 3-0? Is it still 3-0 or has it gone past that? It's now 4-0 with 35 minutes gone. 2 from Kieran Brown, 1 from Matt Howlett, and 1 from Jake Witkowski, making it 4-0 to Leeds currently in 4-0 to Leeds currently in Romford. But then last night, so in Leeds on Friday night, the Knights lost 3-2 to the Steel Dogs, and then they played last night in Sheffield, and it was 3-2 to the Steel Dogs. Can't argue that one. Although again, a large talking point in this one has less been the result and more the actions of one player in particular, because the Steel Dogs get the win here in OT. Ethan here, Alex Graham and Jason Hewitt all get on the board. It's 2-1 Sheffield heading into the third, and the lone goal for the third, and a man of the match performance, and someone that I've been talking about a lot recently is Finn Braden. He's on a two-way between the Knights and the Billingham Stars. He's arguably, he's going to be, or at least should be, in any North 1 All-Star team. This young man has been absolutely on fire recently. If you've not taken a chance to go and check out the Drop the Puck TV highlights that they do for North 1, seek out some of the stuff that this young lad has been doing at Billingham. He is unbelievable at that level, just utterly tearing them apart. Crazy stuff to watch. Should also be said, I did take some time as well to watch some Solway highlights. We'll talk about Solway in a bit, but dear me, there are some players in that North 1 level. There is a very marked gap in the quality level when you see it with your own eyes on tape between some of the teams at the bottom and some of the teams there a bit lower down in that division. Either way, we won't factor in what's happening in Leeds right now. What we will do is we'll quickly press that button and hope the things are going to load. I'm just going to click back to here so I can get this loaded up, and then can do that. And we get the table for the NIHL National Division. So at the moment, like I say, obviously this is about to change. Leeds are about to play one of their games in hand, and it will put them clear unless something catastrophically goes awry. The Leeds Knights, top of the table against over MK. Both teams on 68 points. MK in second place due to tiebreaker, having played more games and a bunch of other bits and pieces. Peterborough have 42 games played and 66 points, so 2 points back. They need the teams above them to slip up. Sheffield, though, have played 43 games. They have 58 points, so they're not in an insurmountable position of getting third if Peterborough had a complete meltdown, which I don't think they will. Swindon are in fifth, 51 from 43. Raiders, 44 from 41, though we know that's about to become 42 after tonight. Bison, after their 1 point weekend, 34 from 42. Telford, 33 from 43, so the Bison still have a game in hand. Bristol, 29 from 42, which is a big one, particularly for Basingstoke. The Bison, 5 points clear of the Pitbulls, having played the same amount of games. That is going to, despite not a great weekend in terms of points, albeit performances, but okay-ish, that will keep Ashley Tate happy to start with. As we scoop down, we can see there that the Bees have 21 from 42, Hull 20 from 44. Now, depending on who those games games in hand are against, Hull still have a chance to not finish bottom in their inaugural season. What we do as well see from our friend Joe Scutts at NHLstats.wordpress.com is we have 4 teams now qualified for the National Division playoffs. Leeds, MK and Peterborough are officially joined by Sheffield. The Steel Dogs now cannot fall out of 8th place. So that's the National Division. That's the National Division so far. Leeds still very much in control. We're just going to very quickly get the phone up and just double check there hasn't been another goal. What's going on there? No, still 4-0 at the moment to the Knights in that game there. Just checking a few bits. What have we got there? Got people talking in my mentions about condiments again. Interesting. I guess I did jokingly say to Matty Davies that they ran what Hull's answer would be, and I said it would be Svek returning or a player sponsor or a title sponsor of Chip Spice. Matty Davis has said to me, title sponsor is a great shout. I can say it's not that, but we are in talk. So fun times there up in Hull, even if they do end up finishing with a wooden spoon this year. This year has been a year to survive. A club made very quickly, everything slapped together a last minute almost, it felt like at times. But the idea for the Seahawks, for Matty, for Joe Lamplow, was to get through the year and to just kind of get to the summer and sort of take stock and kind of press on. If there's going to be a title sponsor for the Seahawks next year, that's going to be big, big news, especially if they're definitely wanting the big prodigal son to come home. You know who I'm talking about. Let's have a look at the chat very quickly. Glad we have Stato people like myself, Joe Scutts, Andrew Dane, David Strover to help people out when Spaldwell doesn't work as it should, yeah. Herman 6+3. I thought it was 7+3, or did I read that wrong? Do I think Braden will be at Leeds full-time next season? I don't know, and it's only because of his age, because he's still quite young. I think he's 17. I think what I'd be interested to see is if he's bouncing between Leeds and between Leeds and Billingham. The question for Braden is, what is he offered from elsewhere? Now, obviously, Billingham are going to have to resign themselves to the fact that he is not going to stay there forever, and he will very, very likely not be a Billingham star for too much longer. And I think the question then for Braden is, where is he best value? Is it best value for him to stick with Leeds, this really, really big, sort of, like I say, really impressive team? They're still very much the odds-on favourites for the National Division title. They have the potential to do a Grand Slam this year. If Braden ends up with 3 winners' medals, does he look to stick it out with Leeds and stick in a system that is clearly full of talented guys, but he's maybe not necessarily going to get tons and tons of ice time? Or, given his northern base, does he look elsewhere? Does he stay on a 2-way maybe and think, when I hit 18, then I'll step, when I'm fully 18 and I can take the cage off, do I go into the national full time? Do other teams a bit further north become an option for him? Because people are going to be watching. Sheffield becomes an option for him. Hull becomes an option for him as well. Manchester, of course, are using like Finley Ulrich in this kind of 2-way position. Does he go onto a 2-way deal between an elite league side and a national division side? Because of his age, he's 17. He could effectively be registered through and stick on a registration with Billingham as well and be registered with 3 teams. However, my likely suspicion is Finn Braden will end up probably on a 2-way deal with a National League side and be registered with Billingham. Kind of what happened with Malik Martelli. If you remember last year, Malik Martelli was a Streatham player on a 2-way with MK, but Streatham were kind of in charge. And now this year, that's kind of been flipped on its head. Martelli is an MK player who is dual registered to Streatham, so because of his age can play down and will play for Streatham when MK don't have games because he's still London based. I venture for next year, anybody who picks up Finn Braden, and certainly if I'm negotiating from Finn Braden's position, I want my contract to be in the National Division. I want to press on, and the idea being that he can go and play for Billingham if there's not games, or if something's happening and they want to just kind of like load him out. If it's a 1-game weekend for whoever he's with, go play for Billingham on Sunday, go get ice time. Because ultimately that's the thing Finn Braden needs is ice time right now. I would take Ulrich at Hull next season full time. I bet you would. He's very, very talented. I still think he should press on and be in the Elite League next year. Is Hull a shout? I think it becomes a shout because of his northern base. I think the idea that he won't look at his options and won't consider his options, given the fact he's going to get talked about a lot this off season. I think if you're a sensible young man, you keep your options open. I think is the best way to do that. He's obviously going to have his family around him, his friends around him, and hopefully he will make a good decision for his development. For me, like I say, he should be national division, be dual registered, and play down into Billingham as and when he kind of gets opportunities to do so. And I'm sorry to Stars fans who watch the show, but for me, it's kind of a bit like Owen Bruton in Hull. This lad needs to be pushed on and needs to be challenged and get him up there. Get him up through the ranks, get him playing minutes. And Bruton, as a 16, 17-year-old in the National Division this year, has been superb. Braden looks the business too, and I think it's those young guys we need to get them up and get them playing at as high a level as we possibly can as soon as possible. Which is why I say about trying to get Ulrich into the Elite League more. Obviously, this two-way deal has been really, really good for him because it's allowed him big ice time in big situations. He ain't playing in overtime for Manchester, is he? So, there's ways and means to use these contracts to really, really develop players. But for me, we need to start getting Braden as much ice time on at national division level as we possibly can to better him going forward. Did you enjoy the stream of Hull versus Bison on Sunday? I did, actually. Obviously, it wasn't the usual commentary crew for the Seahawks. Certainly, the first period of Joe Lampley using every football cliche, talking about crosses, was hilarious. But fair play to Joe. He's obviously, he cares a lot. But my understanding is that Joe played semi-professional football for quite a long time. So his terminology is going to lean towards what he knows, rather than necessarily getting all of the ice hockey terminology perfectly correct. But no, a few wobbles. I know Hull have had issues getting the Wi-Fi signal to work brilliantly in the arena. And I think there's kinks to iron out, but I think it's decent. And also I think what Hull being very sensible and pricing it slightly down at $11.99. I think it's for me, I've personally said this. I think all streams in the National Division are too high a price compared to the ticket price and compared to the value of what you get. However, I think Hull are doing it well from a price point perspective compared to everybody else, and I think at least sort of like camera quality is at least okay. They kind of need to settle on a permanent commentary duo and try and get those people as much as possible. But at least the people that they've had, whether I know it was Callum from their social media team who was doing it on Sunday, at least he's got like an idea, and they haven't just got in a sports commentator. They've got someone who kind of knows about hockey and knows the terminology. They're usual guys as well, whose names escape me, and I'm really, really sorry to them for that. But they've got some general ideas about kind of positioning and bits and pieces like that, and I really enjoyed kind of what they've done on that front. So I find Hull stream okay. Is it the best in the league right now? No. For me, the two best are the Bees and the Steel Dogs. I think in terms of the stream. For me, that's a personal preference kind of thing, and that's a mishmash of what you get and commentary as well. Those are the two best for me personally. Either way, we've got 4 other divisions that we need to smash through, so we better crack on and have a quick look at North 1. The Great Billingham Catch-Up Tour. The Great D-Side Catch-Up Tour continues as the Dragons, having had that massive chunk of time away with the rink not being ready, back in action. Double weekends for all concerned for D-Side, but not the best of Saturday nights for the Dragons. The Solway Sharks put the Dragons to the sword. A 7-3 win for Solway over in North Wales. And not a good weekend for D-Side in general, as they were back in action Sunday. They had a long old trip to the Forum and a narrow 5-4 loss in regulation for the Dragons. In spite of that, they have qualified for the playoffs. As a result, they mathematically cannot finish 9th anymore. So they are in, despite the Stars pushing their way through in that game and getting the win. And speaking of wins, you can see it there. We've been waiting a while, and it finally comes on the 12th of February, given the fact that sorry, Chris, given the fact that he turned up at just the wrong time. But given the fact that we do have to talk about it, the Sheffield Scimitars are finally in the winning column for 22-23 in 2023. A 7-3 win in the local derby against the Nottingham Lions. The Lions appear to be in a bit of a state of disarray. Their form has been absolutely wonky since that chunk of games that were cancelled over the time of the Universe A with players away and the like. But credit to the Scimitars. That team have stuck at it. It's been a lot of heavy defeats, a lot of heavy losses against them, but they've stuck it out. And congratulations to the Shims on finally getting in the winning column. Good news for Solway, though. They had another 7-3 win, and this time on Sunday in Merseyside against the Wild. I haven't had the chance to check out the highlights of this game. I'm not sure if they're out yet, but I will be doing that because I'm interested to kind of see. But a big win for Solway, especially in the context of what happened at the same time on the Hobbs-Moat Road. Solihull with a 5-4 win against the Whitley Warriors, putting one hand, or one fin, as it were, firmly on that North 1 title. And then, of course, we'll talk about it now before we get too heavily into it. Is that there's a game we kind of need to talk about that's coming up this weekend. If we scroll down the page here, and it's this one here on Sunday, you will notice that it says Whitley versus Billingham. Now, I did tweet out about this earlier today because that game on Sunday at the Forum, at Hillheads, should be between the Whitley Warriors and the Nottingham Lions. And then Whitley announced that they were changing the game and they were playing Billingham instead. Now, of course, we know what is coming up on the 26th. It is the Carabao Cup, the Football League Cup final. Newcastle United back at Wembley for the first time in an age, and essentially, it feels like Whitley kind of want to just go on the sesh down in London, and basically Whitley and Billingham don't want to miss out on a massive payday, so that they've swapped the game to a week earlier. The Nottingham Lions, of course, popped up and said, "We haven't agreed to this, nor has this been communicated to us. Have we had any official announcement of this change at all? No." The IHA, ladies and gentlemen, both an organisation staffed by well-meaning people who don't say anything, which, given that we now have a new media and communications officer, is even more fantastic. Wasn't it, Hillheads, that were meant to come to us? Oh, even better! That's even better. So they've swapped an away game down in Nottingham for our home game the week before. Fantastic on that front. But yeah, either way, a lot of confusion. There's still a bunch of games the Lions haven't played. Are they cancelled? Are the points being distributed? What's happening here? There's a fair few of these fixture bits and pieces. Certainly the frustrating thing I know for a lot of people, excuse me, is the Lions cancelled games, as they said, because they felt, because of people who were away for the Universe Aid over in Lake Placid, we're still waiting for a bunch of their games to be announced as being rearranged. Whitley feels here like they've just changed things on a whim, and then Nottingham have said, we haven't agreed to this, and they've gone and done it anyway. Whitley have tweeted out that you can download the programme to read, so good one with that. Very confusing, and really the IHA need to come out and make some sort of official announcement about this themselves, not through the clubs. Are the Lions games being replayed? What is happening there? Why have they come to this decision that Sunday's game is allowed to be changed when the Lions have said that they're not happy to change it? And that's a bit of a strange one to me. This is one of those things where, certainly from a fixtures perspective, the IHA misses Tony Lack, who was very, very good at organising these things. But again, this is a communication issue from the IHA. Why have we not had any announcement as to what's going on? Either way, though, we will have a good look at the North 1 table. As I said, as you can see, everybody is qualified for the playoffs, apart from Nottingham and Sheffield, because they're mathematically not quite there yet. But that loss for Whitley is going to prove costly for them, you think. They are 2 points behind the Solway Sharks. The Sharks have 41 points from 22 games, Whitley 39 from 24. Very, very much the ball is in the Sharks' core. And also for Whitley, Billingham are slowly starting to catch that up. They have 34 from 25. It's been a really decent season so far for Billingham, like we've said. Solihull, though, their win gets them within striking distance of the Stars. They have 29 points, but they've only played 21 games. Solihull, if they win those games in hand, could make third, and especially they've got at least one game against the Lions. If that's cancelled and Solihull get points awarded, that's a freebie for them. Widnes are in 5th. They're 7 points back of the Barons. The Wild have 22 from 22. Blackburn have 18 from 23. Deeside 17 from 20 as they're nearly caught up now. Nottingham then have 10 from 22, and the Scimitars have 3 from 25. It's finally there. They are 1, 23 and 1. As we said, congratulations again to Sheffield on finally making it over the line in that one. I can only imagine how tough a year that must be, having to kind of deal with just losing week in, week out. Either way, we will quickly then, he says, lining everything up as it needs to be. We'll quickly then have a look into South 1. A couple of games then from Saturday. Big home wins for both sides, respectively. A good win for the Slough Jets, a 6-2 win over the Invicta Dynamos to help them keep pace with Streatham and Solent above them. The Devils with a 5-0 shutout win against the Oxford City Stars. Obviously, Streatham are the dominant force, but it's very, very important, particularly as well as we get to the business end of the season, not just cementing playoff position, but keeping Streatham in check. Streatham could they are, like I say, they've won a lot. They are by far and away the best team in this division, but if they do slip, who's going to be there to take advantage? Invicta, though, do bounce back the next day on Sunday. They get a 6-3 win at home against Chelmsford down in Kent. So a big win there in their local derby. They'll keep them happy. And Oxford rebound. They, having conceded 5 and not scored the night before, a sizable 8-1 win for the Stars over the MK Thunder. There was obviously some news in the Oxford game. My understanding, I'm just quickly gonna pull up Oxford's Twitter, because I believe one of their players got taken to hospital. So I'm just very quickly gonna quickly pull up the Stars Twitter. I don't want to say the wrong name, so I'm 100% certain it was actually, yes, Josh Abbott getting taken to hospital, discharged, back at home, and hopefully everything is all right with him. Certainly in that game, 4 goals, 2 assists for Bailey Hind Pitcher, of course, on a 2-way with the Bristol Pitbulls. So certainly a decent result for him personally in that one. But yeah, no game for Streatham this weekend. Though, of course, very much sort of in preparation, and they do have a pretty big game in the context of their season coming up against Slough this coming Saturday. So we will see what happens. See what happens there. I'm just trying to get the whole league table into the picture before I click that button. And there is the South 1 table. So as we can see, Streatham still very much in command. 38 points from 20 games. Solent's win, though, keeps them at least on pace. 34 from 22 for the Devils. The gap there, 9 points down to Invicta of 25 from 22. Slough have 23 from 20. Which is obviously, obviously they could get third back. Chelmsford in their sort of up and down year, 20 from 22, below 500 record for the Chieftains this year, which is not going to make them very happy. Romford 16 from 19, Oxford now 14 from 20 after their big win over the MK Thunder, who have 7 points from 21. What's Chris Gatsby put in the chat here? Sorry, backtracking slightly. We have 12. The Nottingham Lions have 12 games to fit into 6 weekends before the end of the season. Anyone with less than 22 already in North 1 physically can't get them in without midweeks, which of course is not going to land very, very well with it's not going to land very, very well at all with teams in North 1. The majority of those rosters, of course, are pay to play rather than being really able to kind of play games midweek, or at least play midweek easily. Could we be seeing games played with lots of very, very shortened rosters, I suppose, would be the question there. We then head to North 2 because it was one of the big games of the weekend. And it's been a back and forth battle. It's been really close between these two sides. But it's advantage Hull Jets in North 2. A 6-1 win in Telford over the Tigers puts the Jets firmly in the driving seat for the league title that they lost out on last year to Telford. The Jets claimed the other 2 trophies in the league in the season, but it was the Tigers who claimed the league title, which of course is held in such high esteem here for our North American viewers. But a massive, massive win in the context of the season. not many other games this weekend in North 2, as we know. It's quite a league with not tons and tons of games. But Altrincham with a 3-2 shootout win over the Coventry Blaze. So the Blaze, again, still picking up points even when they lose. But good for the Aces as they look to secure third spot. And then a good win for Bradford, who obviously battling at the bottom there with the Nottingham Lions. But the Bulldogs win 4-0 in the NIC on the small pad. Very, very important win. Very important win for the Bulldogs as they look to try and avoid the wooden spoon in the division. We'll just quickly pull up the league table, because of course what we know it says about North 2 is that Hull are top. Both teams have now played their 20 games. They are level on games played, and Hull with a 2-point advantage. Those overtime losses for Telford, keeping them within striking distance, but they are going to need to fight. They're going to need to get results and hope Hull slip up. I don't know if I believe actually, and if we, I'm just going to quickly skip back to my face while I quickly skip back through the fixtures for North 2. Do these two play again? Because I believe they've got at least one game left against each other, which I'm just going to check. They do, but it's not announced. It's still currently to be confirmed in the league fixtures at the moment for North 2 between the Jets and the Tigers. So there's still one game left to be played that hasn't been organised. Altrincham, as we said, they're looking to secure third spot. They're 10 points back of Telford in second, 24 from 21 for the Aces. The Blaze with their 1 point weekend, they are 21 from 21. Sutton 19 from 18. Sheffield Titans 17 from 20. And the Bulldogs leap over the Nottingham Lions now. The Bulldogs into 7th, they have 10 from 20. The Lions have 9 from 20 in North 2. Which means we then head towards South 2, which gives us that one. And not a few games on Saturday. The Oxford Rising Stars with a big 11-2 win at home over the Lee Valley, which will help them on a potential late playoff charge. Invicta win 5-0 at home against Cardiff. Not the greatest of years for Cardiff. It feels like they've been a bit up and down in terms of their form. Invicta starting to kind of push up a little bit and trying to get towards the top end of the table. They're still very much in that title hunt, as we know, but the big result, certainly of Saturday, was the Haringey Huskies. They go to overtime against the Peterborough Phantoms, who get a much-needed point for their playoff charge. But the Huskies win by 5-4 in OT to keep them very, very much on Guildford's tail in that one. On Sunday, then, a good win for the Basingstoke Buffalo, who face them at 4:30 against the Rising Stars. So the Rising Stars get shut out away in Basingstoke, but a good 4-0 win for the Buffalo there as they look to kind of pull themselves away from any machinations to do with the wooden spoon in South 2. Streatham, now we know they've had a bit of a wobble recently, started to slip away from the title picture, but a 10-2 win over the Solent Junior Devils will at least put some smiles on faces of the second team on the high road. But Guildford, 11-2 winners against the Warriors, very, very much needed, especially given the result on Saturday at Alexandra Palace. The Phoenix kind of needed to win. They had that massive weekend with 2 wins against the Huskies, and they definitely didn't want to lose ground, especially against the team really they should be beating in Chelmsford. What that means is that South 2 looks like this: is that you have Guildford and Haringey both level on 33 points at the top of the table. Guildford have played 20 games. Haringey have played 21. The big issue for both those sides is that 5 points back is the Bristol Pitbulls. They have 28 points, but they've only played 17 games, 4 games in hand on the Huskies. 4 games in hand on the Huskies, 3 games in hand on Phoenix. The maximum points total for the Pitbulls still stands above both of what Haringey and Guildford could potentially achieve. Streatham also have 28 points, but they've played 20 games. So, like I say, their title chances are starting to look pretty slim at the moment. And Invicta have 27 from 19 to be in 5th. The top 5 are all now officially qualified for the postseason in South 2. The rest of the playoffs then is rounded out with Peterborough. They get their 1 point from their loss at Alexandra Palace. They have 23 from 17, so they could still crawl up the table a little bit. Swindon have 19 from 18. Cardiff are in 8th place. They have 16 from 20, which means the bottom end, Chelmsford are still on the outside looking in. They have 14 from 19, so still not an insurmountable hill for them to climb to potentially make the playoffs. The Rising Stars, they have 14 from 21, so not out of it, but probably much more out than they are in. A good win for Basingstoke means they have 8 points from 17. Solent have 3 from 17. Lee Valley have 2 from 14. So again, if something happened, the Lee Valley Lions are not completely out of sidestepping out of that wooden spoon picture. Can Lee Valley finally not finish bottom of the NIHL structure? Will they be able to carve away and find a way to get above Solent when it comes down to it? But there we go. We've gone through every game across all 5 divisions in the National Ice Hockey League structure. Questions, comments, anything anybody wants to chuck in the chat. Obviously, we've got a few bits and pieces. I will very, very quickly pull up the... just quickly, let's get the score from Romford at the moment. Let's just see what we've got here. It was 4-0 at the last time of asking. Still 4-0 by the look of it at the moment. Let's just very, very quickly check the... I know there's a couple of Elite League... There's definitely some Elite League bets going on this evening, so let's just very, very quickly... very, very quickly check that. But yeah, so blooming Evans, 3 goals in a minute from the Blaze. That is not fun. That is not fun at all. Even the Manchester Storm telling them to delete it is pretty impressive and all sorts. So Blaze are 4-2 up on the 4-2 up on the Storm. What's happening with the Steelers? Very quickly. Yeah, I mean, trying to find anything sometimes on Twitter, it's just acting up all over the shop sometimes for me. What's wrong with my nose? I've got a really itchy nose. I swear, I don't know. I'm not doing too many bits and pieces. Belfast are 5-1 to the good in the Spectrum. That makes me happy. No, because I've never gotten past the fact that as a Basingstoke fan, I just don't like the Guildford Flames. I'm sorry, I'm not one of these people who buys into the fact, oh, isn't it great that they're top of the table and causing a problem? No, it's Guildford and don't like them. What have we got? And so it's 3-0. So the Steelers pushing towards the Challenge Cup final by the looks of it against the 5 Flyers. But there we go, bits and pieces going on. There. What have we... Let's just... Sorry, checking bits and pieces as we go. Either way, we're heading towards 9 o'clock, so let's quickly bash through the upcoming fixtures for this weekend. Of course, missing out the 50,000 different games that the Nottingham Lions should be playing this weekend instead of the ones that they are, instead of the ones that they're not. We finished in South 2. Let's cut back to South 2, and probably not the reading that the Huskies fans will have wanted, because really this is a game that Guildford should be winning. They play Saturday night and in the Spectrum against the Solent Junior Devils. That's a 6:30 face-off at the Spectrum. The other game on Saturday in South 2 also faces off at 6:30 p.m. The Peterborough Phantoms take on the Basingstoke Buffalo. One game on Sunday in South 2. Peterborough in action again, as are Solent. This time the two of them will meet down in Gosport for a 6 p.m. face-off there. Now, I do apologise. I'm just very quickly going to blow me nose, because that's probably why my nose is itching rather than actually doing anything about it, which actually would have been particularly helpful. North 2 then, as we work our way backwards. There we go. There's the 18th then. So a 4:45 p.m. face-off in Bradford, and a big game there actually in terms of the wooden spoon in North 2. The Bradford Bulldogs and the Nottingham Lions meet again, having met last week in Nottingham. Hull take on the Coventry NHL Blaze at 5:30 at the world's most versatile arena. A potential banana skin really for the Jets, mostly just because, like we say, Coventry just seem to be getting into a real rhythm at the moment. 7 p.m. face-off on Saturday in Telford. The Tigers take on the Aces. That's a second versus third matchup there. And then 7:30 p.m. at Ice Sheffield for the local derby, the Sheffield Titans and the Sutton Sting. On Sunday, just the 2 games. Altrincham take on Bradford at 5:30 over in near Manchester, and a 7 p.m. face-off at the Sky Dome for the Coventry NIHL Blaze. Having taken on the Jets on Saturday, they will take on the Telford Tigers. So Coventry potentially could put a real spanner in the works of what's going on for teams at the top end of that table. Could we be seeing Coventry being everybody's enemy by the end of this one? Into South one then for Saturday, just the 2 games on Saturday. 5 PM face-off down in Gosport, as is normal for the Solent Devils. They take on the Romford Junior Raiders. And then the big game really there in that division, Slough versus Streatham at the Hangar. 6:30 PM face-off. I've been watching a bit of Slough's highlights recently, and they're a really interesting team. There's been obviously a lot of talk about Slough. Obviously a lot of people pondering about whether they're going to step up, working on some reporting regarding that. But about what might be happening there, nothing is confirmed at the moment, but I'm just getting to a point where I can kind of report it properly. But them against Streatham, that's a big game. Really interested to see how that turns out. Basingstoke are at home on Sunday, so I'm not going to go out on Saturday and anger my wife. But if I could go to a game on Saturday, I'd be definitely looking at going to that one. Sunday then, just the 3 games on Sunday. A 5:15 PM face-off at Sapphire Ice and Leisure. Romford taking on Slough. 6:15 at Oxpens for the Oxford City Stars and the Invicta Dynamos. And 6:45 PM in the Thunderdome. The MK Thunder will take on the Chelmsford Chieftains. You hope, can MK get another win this season? I suppose is a discussion point to have for this part of the season. Will MK win again before they get to the playoffs, and they inevitably have to face Streatham? Into North one then, D-side of course, back at home, a 5:15 PM face-off for them in North Wales. The local derby again against the Widnes Wild, and Solway at home against the Nottingham Lions. Given the Lions' wretched form, that does not look like it is going to be a fun game for Matt Bradbury's side as they have to travel all the way up to Scotland. Sunday then, a couple of games on Sunday. An early face-off for the Scimitars. They face off at 1 PM against Widnes. A 5 PM face-off then, as we know, supposedly, we'll assume this is going ahead, according to them and everybody else. 5 PM between Whitley and Billingham in what should be a real ding-dong of a local derby, if it does go ahead and Whitley aren't forced to go to Nottingham instead. D-side back at home, 5:15 PM against the Solihull Barons. And then 6 PM over in Lancashire, Blackburn will take on the Solway Sharks. A 2-game weekend for the Sharks in this one, as they look to, so they'll make up one of those games in hand that they have against Whitley. A real chance though. The Sharks need to keep the pressure on to really push on and make sure that they do secure back-to-back league titles again for them. So, as we know, there's currently 1 game going on in the National Division, and that is the Raiders against the Knights, which is currently still 4-0 to Leeds at the moment. No other games on Friday, so we head into Saturday. 5:15 PM face-off over in Romford for the Raiders and the Hull Seahawks. A long journey for Matty Davis's boys on Saturday there. And then a couple of 6:30 PM face-offs. Leeds take on Telford. Swindon take on the Bees. And then 7 PM face-offs in the Thunderdome, the MK Lightning against the Sheffield Steel Dogs. That'll be a very interesting game. And then a huge game when it comes to those final playoff spots. Bristol host Basingstoke. Into Sunday then, the Bison at home against Leeds. That'll be fun at 5:30. A 5 PM face-off for the Bees against the Pitbulls. 4:30 PM face-off for Sheffield against Swindon. So if you fancy a couple of games of hockey back-to-back, you can have the Scimitars at 1 and the Steel Dogs at 4:30. That sounds like a great day to me. A 5:30 PM face-off between Peterborough and M&K. Those games are always very tasty. And also a 5:30 PM face-off in Hull. The Seahawks take on the Raiders in what is a home and home for those two sides this weekend. That is your fixtures for this coming weekend, the 18th and 19th of February in the National Ice Hockey League's divisions. There we go. We've bopped over the hour marks. Questions, comments, stick the bits and pieces in the chat that you want to talk about. We'll go free form to end the show, of course. The one thing we should say, of course, we do offer our condolences to Alexander Ovechkin and his family. His father, Mikhail, having passed away today. Very sad news, of course. Ovechkin taking a leave of absence from the Capitals in the NHL. As a result of that, just sad to see. You know, it's a horrible thing. Like having lost a stepdad, who I was close-ish to. That was obviously really hard. I can't imagine what it's like losing your dad, someone who's been really close to, he's shared all these great memories and everything with him. So it is very, very sad. But just hug your mum, call your mum, call your dad. Do some good there if nothing else. But yeah, like I say, anything anybody wants to chuck in before we head out. So a bit of a, like I say, it's always a bit of a strange one trying to stream in the middle of games, but such is the way of things. We'll just quickly check if there's any other news from anything else. Have we had any more goals in Romford? Becomes the question. We have, and it's the Raiders who are finally on the board. TJ Anderson. Well, congratulations to him. That is a very important goal. Really like TJ Anderson. Really solid young player. I think he's got a really, really decent future. Certainly, Sean Easton really, really big in terms of trying to pull those youngsters through. And TJ's been one of those ones who's very, very much been on the cusp, been on the two-way between the two Raiders sides for some time now. So really impressed that he's able to find it. And also seems to be a good couple of days for young talent on two ways with national divisions. Braden the other night, Anderson tonight, and I know he's been in the lineup a bit recently due to bits and pieces. So fair play to TJ. Looking a bit, TJ Anderson from Elliot Dewey is a hell of a scoreline for a goal that you wouldn't have picked out to see. That's impressive. Just while people are kind of putting the last bits and pieces in the chat, the stream and bits and pieces. I've got some stuff in the works to make it look a bit nicer and a bit shinier. I'll talk about it more when it's good to go. But trust me, there is stuff in the pipeline just to make things look a bit shinier and a bit better and a bit more interesting. Also, I've got to learn properly how to use OBS and get it really, really working. But promising stuff. I feel really, really good about it. It feels like the stream, it feels just that little bit better being able to kind of transition between stuff. I did have somebody say to me, would I look at putting the streams out as like a podcast and doing it that way? Would that be something people are interested in? So far I've had one person who said they'd like the What's Current stream as like an audio podcast to listen back to later. If that's something that people be interested in, do let me know. I don't necessarily know off the top of my head how to do that in the immediacy, but there's definitely a way to do it. I'm sure there is a way to do it. It's just about kind of how you how about go and do things. I think is probably the go about doing that. But yeah, as a thing, it's all very very amusing, if nothing else, to try and just sort of fiddle around, manage to kind of get the clicks in, click things at the right time, and this will get slicker with time, and this is a good time towards the end of the year to be doing these kind of things, and things will get better as we kind of go. But yeah, last call, questions, comments, anything else anybody kind of wants to chuck in would be good. Just because I've got, like I say, we've been going over an hour now. In a good place to kind of crack on and see how we're doing. Just checking actually on YouTube and just making sure the bits and pieces are okay. But yeah, it's like I say, obviously a little bit quieter today just because like there's a game on and stuff. Not entirely sure why, but the tweet doesn't. Has the tweet kind of come through? Certainly looks like some bits and pieces have happened with it. Not sure whether I've just clicked the wrong thing there. Yeah, we'll figure that one out. Like I say, still just kind of getting to grips with getting everything sorted up and getting everything loaded and everything like that. But yeah, we'll get there. No, I think we're going to, in which case, I think we'll get to the end. We will call it there. Bannersonthewall.wordpress.com, your number one source for everything related to the Basingstoke Bison. Player comings, player goings, match night reports. What I like to think is a pretty decent level of analysis rather than just giving you yet another write-up as to how the games are. All those bits and pieces are there. And as well as our hockey story series, like I say, new piece in the works. Something a little bit different in terms of from a thematic and stylistic way of kind of doing things. So that's That should be really interesting when I can kind of bash it together. I'm going to be working on that this weekend, I think. But hockey stories, like I say, we go all the way back to the 19th century, as far forward as the present day. We go into war, behind the Iron Curtain. We go from the NIHL to the NHL, and all points in between. Plenty of stuff if you like your long form pieces that you like to sit down and read. That's there on the website, as is the back catalogue of the old BOTW podcast and our free to download tabletop ice hockey game, Dice Hockey. Everything is there, free to download. You can play it at home with your family and your friends, nice and easy. It's there. It is free to download. But if you do enjoy it, please do me a favour and chuck a couple of quid towards Parkinson's UK. That'd be really, really appreciated. But like I say, a bunch of stuff there of all varieties and stripes, and the whole back catalogue of everything I've written for the last nearly 12 years is there at bannersonthewall.wordpress.com. Facebook.com/bannersonthewall. If you like getting bits and pieces for your Facebook feed, by all means head over there to facebook.com/bannersonthewall. Like the page. Everything that goes on to the website will go through the Facebook page as well as getting the links for other stuff. Twitter is at bannersotw. That's where I kind of do my sort of live as it is kind of commentary on the world of hockey, mostly the NIHL, but I'll kind of chat about anything to everybody as it were. But that's also where you'll get the links to this wonderful thing. Wednesday nights, 8 p.m. throughout the British hockey season. We focus here on the BOTW What's Current stream on the NIHL, 8 p.m. every Wednesday. All 5 divisions, North 1, North 2, South 1, South 2, and of course our focus being on the NIHL National Division, the first and only live show to cover all of those anywhere in the country. And you know, like I say, as long as we'll keep rocking. We've gone pretty much every week consistently this year. I can't think of a week. I think we had 1 week off when I wasn't well, but otherwise I think we've managed to bash through every single week and kind of do a couple of bonus streams into the bargain too. But yeah, if you're not already subscribed on YouTube, please do hit that subscription button. Please do hit the bell for notifications, because it all helps the discovery of the channel and the streams and bits and pieces. That'd be massively appreciated. But there we go, another week done in the NIHL, and another week with a new format. What do you think? Comment down below, drop us a tweet at bannersotw, tell us what you think of the show, and let us know if you'd be interested in getting the show as an audio only podcast, because like I say, I've had one person say they'd like it. If I get some more people say that they'd be interested in it, I'd be more inclined to kind of get it done, to be really interested. But yeah, another weekend of hockey gone, another weekend to come, and the business end of the season is really starting to come into sharp focus now. Be happy, and if you can't be happy, then please do be safe. As my friend Scotty Watts would say, take care of yourself and somebody else. For bannersonthewall.wordpress.com, this is Anthony Russell saying stay safe, and so long till next time. I'm going to go to a home game on a Sunday, which doesn't feel right. Hockey's hockey, I suppose. Take care, everyone. I'll see you next Wednesday.